How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a podcast slash informational video of the Ohio Boys. Real quick before we get started today, we'd like to introduce the member of the team here that has not made his debut yet, Jeff. Jeff is from up toward Elyria area. We met him through baseball in college, and we've been hunting together for a few years now. And, like I said, that's how we all met was through baseball in college. But today we're going to talk to you about some things, what not to do, mistakes we've made in the past when we first started hunting. A lot of us taught ourselves. Not everybody here had grandparents and parents that took us hunting as kids and stuff. A lot of it was through trial and error, especially through bow hunting. So we're going to start out today with hunting too early, too much. I think everybody can put an opinion on that one. When we first started out, at least myself, opening day comes around, I'm in the stand. Everybody wants to hunt as much as they can. Everybody's got that fever throughout the summer to get out there and get after it. The problem was, by going in there too early and hunting so much, you're putting out a lot of scent, you're putting out a lot of pressure, and it's just not a good combination. Especially, you don't want to do it to your good spots, because that's going to affect the deer activity. Even toward the rut, it can affect it later in the season. So in years past, you set out your cameras, you get a couple good bucks coming in. A lot of times it's nocturnal early in the season, which is another reason why not to hunt too much too early. But you get a picture of a good buck, you run in there, you're putting scent out there, you're putting pressure. It's hard to kill a buck early season. It really is. So what I do now is I don't even usually start hunting my good spots until last week of October. If it's still too warm, I won't even do it then. But usually last week of October, we'll start going into our good spots to start deer hunting. But we have our early season spots, as far as does. If we have a farm that doesn't have very many bucks on it, but it has a lot of does, we'll go there and shoot does early season. We'll do stuff like that. But as far as our good spots, nowadays we kind of just leave it until it gets right, because you don't want to pressure those bucks out of there. You want the bucks to feel comfortable, because you got to realize your neighbors and everybody else around you more than likely is going out opening day, and they're kicking deer out. So if you stay out of your area is going to be kind of a sanctuary where the deer feel really comfortable. And if you wait till the weather and the wind and the deer get right, you're going to be really able to capitalize on a good deer, I feel. But what are your guys' opinion on that?
I kind of personally, the first 2 weeks can be really good if you're able to pattern them a little bit. Like what I mean, like if you're able to figure out where they're going to feed at night and then going back to bed, the first couple weeks can be really good. But I know where me and him hunt in Southern Ohio, we're not able to pattern anything.
No, it's very hard.
So I killed my biggest deer on the opening morning. But it's very rare. And another reason I don't like early season as much is it's usually really warm up here. And if you do get one, you got to race the clock to get it cleaned up and packed up. And I personally don't like that very well. I go opening weekend. I usually go to more or less just because it's opening weekend.
Right.
But
yeah.
Other than that, I'll go spots that I don't really plan on hunting quite as much when the season progresses, just to kind of see what's going on. But other than that, early season for me it's not my favorite.
I know, like, for us last year, like he was saying, and him as well with patterning deer, we had a giant on camera at one of the spots where we usually just doe hunt at. And he was there for, 2 weeks before season, almost every single day, every night. And
With a bunch of other bucks.
yeah, with a bunch of, there's like 8 different bucks in there and probably, 5 or 6 shooters. Anywhere from, 130s to the biggest buck that I was talking about. He was probably in the mid 170s, maybe low 180s.
Easy.
And, he just disappeared. And, we didn't know what happened. We were setting out corn and stuff like that. In Ohio, it's legal to bait. So, we were setting out corn and apples, and they were all coming to it, but for some reason they just disappeared. And I don't know if we put too much scent out at one time, and they kind of picked up on it, which very well could be, which is another reason why it's so hard to hunt early season.
You gotta think the more you go into an area to do things like putting corn out, checking cameras, the more they start patterning you, and that's not a good thing.
And that also brings up a good point. In the summer months, they're all in bachelor groups. All the bucks are hanging out together, and those patterns will change. Like Jeff said, you have a very small, slight window if you are going to pattern deer early season, and most of the time up here in Ohio, you're unsuccessful. Is it impossible? No, but like Zach said, we had a bachelor group of several bucks that were good, and I think and this is another topic we're going to get into, but I think people take the summer patterns as gospel. It's like, hey, that's what it's going to be for the rest of the year, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, it changes throughout the years.
Right.
Or throughout the year. Pretty often, really.
Quick.
Yeah,
Some properties that are great during the early season, I won't see a single deer during the rut and prime time, but one of my best spots that I have, there's nothing early season. You won't see a single deer, but the last week of October and the first 2 weeks of November,
Yeah.
I'll have bucks running on me every single day. So spots change, patterns change, and at the end of the day, you just got to be adaptable and be able to move and make a change and understand what your area, yields. Next topic here, I think we're going to check out is don't draw back on a deer you don't plan to shoot.
We've all done it.
We've done it a couple years ago, several, 4 or 5 years ago now. Everybody's like, hey, practice drawing back on deer, even ones you're not going to shoot, just to kind of get a feel and practice getting steady. And I'd done this before and never had an issue, but I remember a raghorn buck came by, and our practice, I was like, oh, hey, good opportunity. He was at like 18 yards. Drew back on him and put my pen right behind his shoulder. And before I knew it, my arrow went right through the pump station, and he ran 20 yards and fell over. And I was like, oh, crap, what happened? And instinctively, as soon as that pin got right, oops. And unfortunately, I wasted a tag on a raghorn that I would have never shot. Yes, I did tag it. I did not shoot another buck. So, yeah, thing to know is don't practice drawing back on a live deer you don't plan to shoot.
And, we all hunt with compounds, and, accidents happen. You might accidentally bump the trigger. I use a thumb release. It's very sensitive. You get back there and you accidentally bump it with your chin, your thumb, whatever, and that bow's going to go off. I know he uses a wrist strap release. And, yes, you can keep your finger back behind the trigger, but, like you said, it was just instinct and stuff happens. And, I've drawn back on deer while I was in the stand just to practice and stuff. And we practice enough where we shouldn't have to do that now, but it happens.
I used to do it a lot when I was younger, just starting out. And small bucks would come in and just to practice what you can get away with. Sometimes that's good to do, but definitely keep your finger off the trigger.
Keep your finger off the trigger.
Another thing you got to watch is like with my rest, I use a ripcord, and a lot of times if I draw back, letting it down, it falls away, and my arrow sometimes will pop off my knock point and fall into or make some noise, and it'll spook them. So you got to watch doing that sometimes, depending on the rest leg too. But,
yeah. All right, next topic. Not knowing the distances before the deer show up. So I know for me personally, I'm a big person on when I get to the stand, I take my rangefinder out as soon as I get settled in, and I start ranging specific spots where I know the deer are going to be coming through. Now, that's not saying that they're going to come through those spots all the time, but if you can get certain spots located in your mind, and you know that those are the distances, it's kind of like instinctive to know, like, all right, well, if that tree was there and this tree was at this distance and he's in between, that's what I need to use, whether you're gapping your pins or, it's going to be one of your 20, 30, or 40-yard pins. You'll know that. That I can remember, I don't think I've ever misjudged a yardage, but this past year, I shot an 8-point and he was chasing a doe. I didn't have time to get my rangefinder out, and I didn't know if he was 20 or 30. And I got my pins, and he was closer to 20. I'm sorry, and I hit him high, but luckily it was an ethical shot, so I got lucky with that one.
Yeah,
What about you guys?
it's definitely important. I've even in the past taken some orange reflecting tape or something like that,
Yeah,
and different colors on a tree, and I'll put like say orange for 20, and I've put a pink out at 30, just to kind of give you a rough estimate. You don't have to do that, but if you're just starting out, especially if you're in a new area and you don't know all the trees and you haven't been there for years and you know where everything's at, it's kind of a good idea, I think. The deer don't notice it, and you can get away with it really easy. So that's a good tactic.
I know my uncle down in Southern Ohio, which is how I got into hunting. He uses a crossbow. He's older, and he would actually spray paint on trees 20, 30, and 40. And I mean, it's pretty easy at that point just to know where they're at. But
I know misjudging distance has cost me a few deer in the past. And what I've learned over the years is the bigger bucks, they never come where you expect them to go.
Yeah.
They're always slightly off the main trails, or they come a weird way that you never see any other deer do. And that's just something I've noticed. And in the past, mainly the bucks that I've missed, they've done that. They've come on a trail that I've never seen another deer on before. And a lot of times they come in fast, like they're just there.
Yeah.
You don't have time to bring that rangefinder up. And that's cost me probably 3 or 4 to 20 the past 5-6 years now. But yeah,
it happens.
Anymore, I go out and I range trees, and like you said, if you hunt a spot long enough, you start to know where distances are, and
Right.
that's an important thing to know. But yeah, distances are very important for bow hunting for sure.
And that's a good point you brought up with the big bucks usually not following the main doe trails. And, if you've been bow hunting enough, you know that a lot of your does and yearlings and small bucks, they all run the same trail. But that big buck, he'll come off to
Right.
the side. And
Yeah.
I can't emphasize enough how many times that another thing is, you hear something behind you and you just, you've been hearing squirrels all day and you don't think much of it. And all of a sudden there's a buck right underneath your feet
Yeah.
coming right underneath you. And you're like, oh crap, scramble. So that's a good point. Just be aware of your surroundings. Also, another thing is, especially toward the rut, I don't know if you guys know this, I've noticed a lot of big bucks will let a smaller buck walk in front of them a couple minutes ahead.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've had a small 8-point come by, and then 2 minutes later a 10-point or something bigger come out from behind it. And one of my first bow kills I shot, he was a decent 8-point. I think he was low, 130. It was my first buck with a bow, and I was tickled pink with him. Don't get me wrong, but I shot him, and 2 minutes later, a big 10-point come walking right behind him. So that's another thing to keep in the back of your mind. Got a little off topic there, but
Well, I guess going along with this topic, being ready at all times. I'll admit it. I tend to fall asleep quite a bit in the tree stand. I mean, it's peaceful. I love being up in the stand and just listening to nature and stuff. And I fall asleep. I'm sure everybody's done it once in their life at least. And 2 years ago, it was early morning, and I was dozing off, had my head up against a tree, and I heard a twig break, and I look up in front of me, and there's a 140-inch 10-point that was standing at 20 yards, and I didn't have my bow in my hand. I wasn't ready at all. I looked up, and I'm like, holy crap. And luckily, I was able to get my bow off the hanger and make the shot count, and he ran about, 80 yards and fell over. But, there's been multiple times where I've gotten caught off guard, and not ready when I should have been. And, it could cost you a lot of deer sometimes.
And I guess to go along with that is during the rut, always be aware because, I think we've all done it. You get to that 12 o'clock time and you're starting to get hungry and start letting your guard down and, you're not really as focused. And during the rut, bucks will come in all the time, late in the morning. Deer will just show up. you got to be ready for stuff like that. Also, last light, you start to think about getting down. I've had so many big bucks come in right toward last light, so keep your focus throughout the entire, hunt. And sometimes, you'll get on the phones and start screwing around. That's another thing that's cost, I know my younger brother Casey, a couple deer. But yeah, just some good things to keep in the back of your head is always be aware. Next topic I think Jeff's going to hit up here is relying too much on cameras.
Yeah, so I used to do this all the time. I see people, you watch all these hunting shows, and all these guys have all these cameras out and all these nice deer on camera, and they're patterning them, and all's good. And so, of course, when I was younger, I thought that's how it's supposed to be. So I'd get a few cameras and go put them out and check them every 2 weeks or whatever when we could get down. You don't get much on them, or a couple small bucks or something. Then your hopes start going from up here to down here, and you start thinking that there's nothing big in that area, and that's not true. But when you get in that mindset, you stop hunting that area as much as you normally would, and that's cost a lot of people deer. I mean, it's cost me deer in the past. You just never know what's actually there, and that camera's only covering 15, 20 feet in one direction.
Right.
Like I said, those big ones will skirt around the trails sometimes, so they might just be right behind the camera, just off to the side. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been in my stand watching my camera and seen big deer or deer in general come in off to the side or not on the trail it's looking on, and it never picked them up. But I saw 7, 8 deer that morning, and the camera never even would have saw one.
Right.
So relying on them too much can be bad. I know a lot of guys are at camp in Southern Ohio. They get the same way, and it's easy to do. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone wants to see that big one on camera. I mean, we all do. That's what you want to.
And
That's what you
also,
want,
at our camp down in Southern Ohio, you can't really pattern the deer. I mean, you never know where they're going to go and when they're going to show up. And, it's hard to rely on cameras down there. I mean, there's certain spots where, especially during the rut, there's going to be a good buck show up somewhere at some point. And, that's basically just how we've been hunting the past few years. Go to those spots where you know that those does are going to be traveling and those bucks are going to follow, and you just put in your time there. And it's worked out for us. But I mean, yeah, we get big deer on camera, but
how many times do we get them?
well,
Very rare.
and also we don't always have deer that we'll get on camera one year that show up the next.
That never.
So that's kind of our.
We mainly put them out just to kind of see what's hanging around the area.
Right.
A lot
right.
of the deer at that property, they just pass through one weekend and then you never see them again. But sometimes you get a few that hang around, but there's no pattern to it. It's just we know they're there somewhere, and it gives you a little bit of confidence.
Right.
And that brings up another good point. The trail cameras that these pro staffers and all these people on TV are using, they have thousands of private acreage with 5, 6 food plots, all kinds of opportunities to pattern deer. And like these guys are saying, their property is more of a pass-through property to where they are just passing through. They're not necessarily residing on that property. And I know, behind my house here is kind of that same way. Early season, most of the season, they're not there. They just use it as a travel route during the rut. So you got to be able to read your property. Another great thing, if you are going to run cameras, invest in the wireless cameras if you can. You got reception that send them to your phone. It's worth spending that extra couple bucks not to go in your area every weekend and bust out your area, put scent out there. If you can just leave it out there, if you are going to run cameras. I know last year they worked really good for me. Tried one this year. What I'm probably going to do is just leave it out there all season long, not mess with it. I kind of know one general area where the deer have to come up a certain spot because it's a funnel. That's another thing. If you are going to set cameras, set them in funnel areas where they have to bottleneck almost to certain spots. But great point as far as that goes. Just because you're not seeing them does not mean they're not going behind your camera.
Right.
Don't go out there to check your cameras every weekend because you're really going to really hurt yourself, I feel, in the end game.
Well, that's about it for today. Hope this helps you guys out a little bit. We try to come up with things to talk about. So if you guys want to hear anything different from us, you guys have ideas that you want to hear about, let us know in the comment section. Like, subscribe, comment. We got Chaw, we got Jeff. I'm Zach. We'll see you next time.